Welcome, reanimated fans, to this week's episode of our podcast. I'm a.k.a. Conrad here with Stuart Tiffin, and it's been a bit of a hiatus due to COVID and other things. I am still testing negative. Unbelievably, it's kind of crazy. But my poor significant other it was felled by it. It's not fun. Let me just tell you that. But due to work and travel and other things, we've been on a bit of a break, but we're back. It's fall-ish now, at least here in the Brooklyn side of things, although I know you have a heat wave going on over there, Stuart. How are you faring?
Well, hey, hi. We're doing okay. Well, it's about to get really hot here for a long time, but I'm sure that it doesn't mean it's the end of the world.
Okay. We'll see. But in any case, we got a lot of news items to catch up on, and we're gonna do a bit of a review of Valley of the Dead. So to kick it off, let's talk about some news that I'm really kind of bummed out about, because of things that we've talked about, during when we were reviewing the Resident Evil series. Unfortunately, they've canceled it. They're not re-upping it, and it's kind of depressing because I do feel like this was not fair, especially given some other things out there. Certainly there were some weaknesses in the show, but I did think it was like a fun romp, and I think that they deserved a second season personally, but what are you gonna do? What did you think about it?
It never got the critical acclaim that I think that it got like in the mid 50s from the critics on Rotten Tomatoes,
It
which
did, but I
I
did feel
think
like
is still a little low for what it was
I
too.
think it's low. And then, we're now seeing the same kind of thing. Although I will say I cannot totally weigh in on this because I haven't really gotten into it, but the Lord of the Rings thing, people are like kind of crazy about it. So I've been seeing that like it's had a troll issue with that too, but
Yeah. Lord
probably
of the
for
Rings, like Star Wars, has a healthy dose, an unhealthy dose
yeah.
of toxic fan base.
Yeah.
And I guess so does Resident Evil. And I think that's a really garbage way to
Yeah.
profess your love for for
Franchise
anything. It's
or anything, yeah.
yeah, like hell. When the Star Wars movies were potentially, at their quote unquote worst, I was still just always happy to be in that world, happy to be, on another adventure in the universe. And
I also, you know what? I also look, sure, it's like there's certain things that don't always hit, and that's fine, but I think it's kind of cool to see different people's ideas about it. And I guess I just don't really love how people are trashing on things, and I don't know, it's kind of upsetting, and to me it's the antithesis of what some of these things are about. So I don't know. To me, I try not to really look at some of this stuff because I just think for me it destroys my enjoyment of them.
yeah. Well, I
But
mean, while certainly the new Lord of the Rings of Power show has had and probably will still have a lot of negative feedback because of the way that they've incorporated
yeah,
people who aren't white.
correct.
Blow your mind with that one. It's doing really well, and honestly, I've watched the first two episodes and I thought they were fantastic. So I don't think the trolls will win in that case. Unfortunately, they won in the case of Resident Evil because, well, it wasn't $1 billion show, and despite it being good, it wasn't amazing, right? So I guess, if you
I mean,
and
it
I think
wasn't okay.
the review bombing campaign seemed to, like, I think it scared away audience.
Oh, I definitely think it did, and that's what bums me out because I just think that, as I said, there were definitely parts of it that I was also like, oh, I can't believe they did this. But compared to some other things out there, I just think it deserved at least a second season. And, maybe it's just because I wanted to see a little bit more of Lance Reddick. But, and I thought Paula Nunez, I thought that the overall cast was just amazing. But
Yeah.
what are you going to do? I mean,
And honestly, I was watching I found there's a YouTube channel out there where I forget what it's called, but there are some VFX artists who critique visual effects from TVs and movies on this. There's a lot of these kind of channels out there, but these guys, every so often, they'll do a video, and one of the ones that I saw was where they were critiquing the giant caterpillar from the pilot. and they
Yeah.
were like, this is flawless. I can't see anything that I would do differently with this. Then though, when they were talking about some of the VFX from the Welcome to Raccoon City, the movie, they were quite critical of the fuel tanker truck
Hmm.
crashing into the police headquarters, because they were seeing, I mean, some of the stuff they're seeing is stuff that I never would have noticed, but it's cool perspective to see these guys being
Oh,
like,
I like
no, those,
I,
they took some big flames and made them small and then didn't speed them up, and it's pretty cool to watch that kind of breakdown.
yeah, I love that kind of nerdy stuff. And I do think some of the effects were great in this show. Anyway, but all right. But there's some other stuff going on, so we have to sort of get into the rest of the news. Do you want to take the next one away?
So yeah, this is, I mean, I think I mentioned this maybe a month or two ago, that like apparently development was still going on Dead Island 2. We first saw
So long
trailer
ago.
for Dead Island 2 of a guy jogging down the boardwalk in like Venice Beach
Hmm.
8 years ago,
Yep.
HA. That
Yeah, I know.
is a minute ago. And like I don't know, other than like a Duke Nukem or some of these games that languished in development for like 10 years, there aren't many games that can come back from an 8-year development cycle. And if we saw a trailer 8 years ago, that means it was probably being worked on 10 years ago. So this game is almost feature complete, is my understanding. They've been trotting it out at the cons this summer. The video that they have released now is extremely different in tone, from my perspective, from the first game. It seems to be like GTA, or sorry, Grand Theft Auto, in a zombie apocalypse. It seems very story heavy. I
Hmm.
think that could be super interesting. HA, you've seen the video. What was your take?
I mean, I this is the and again, given the fact that we were all excited about this 8 years ago, like I think it looks great, but it's one of those things where you're like, well, is this all that they have to show us? Do you know what I mean? Like they spend so much time probably I don't know. I just think given how long it's languished, maybe they did get it up. Maybe they've gotten it up to snuff. Maybe they've gotten to a place where this is going to be amazing. But I'm not a gamer person, so you're going to have to be ultimately the one that weighs in on that. But we've seen this a few times where it's like, oh, let's just we're going to show like the best parts, and that's kind of what they did with that other trailer. Although, like, look at how far things have come at this point. So maybe they're at a point where technology and some of the people they have working on it, they can actually turn this into a success, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic about it based on what I was seeing in that video. But
Right.
yeah, let's I'll report back with more.
Right. So
This
um
one's for you, HA.
wait, which one is me?
Evil
Is it
Dead Rise.
yes, Evil Dead Rise is the newest in the Evil Dead franchise, and apparently very so Bruce Campbell, Sam Raimi, Robert uh Taper are all producing this. So that's pretty cool. This is the director is Lee Cronin, and this is like basically a whole like it's a fifth Evil Dead film. And so Beth is featured in this, and she's doing like a visit to her older sister. And they of course find a mysterious book to which will go down the the same road that we've seen in the past with this franchise. Early sort of people who have seen a little bit of this is that it looks pretty good. So it was supposed to go direct to HBO Max, and instead it's going to be actually released in theaters in 2023 in the spring. So that's kind of they must think it's pretty good, and they must have been getting pretty good reviews for it to be released in the theater. So I'm kind of excited to see this, though. I know this isn't your sort of favorite franchise, Stuart, in terms of like, and especially if we've seen, our commentary when we watched the most recent what's its face, the Avengers thing. Um,
Oh, the Monsters of the Multiverse.
yeah,
No, sorry, that's a Dungeons and
no,
Dragons
that's
book. It
that's
was Doctor
Doctor
Strange.
Strange. Yeah. So I have a feeling we're going to see some of that kind of same flavor to this, which may not be your cup of tea, but I'm pretty excited to see it. So we'll have to get put that on their calendars for April of 2023.
How many of these movies has Bruce Campbell produced? Has he been behind
I
the
think
scenes for a lot
I
of
think
them?
he's kind of been involved in all of them. Maybe not. There may be one where he was absent. I don't know specifically. I would have to look it up, but he's generally been involved. Like, and him and the Raimis are always kind of like thick as thieves with this kind of thing. So,
That's cool. I mean,
so
I might not rush out to see it, but I still respect the fact that they're all in on this
well,
still.
and in terms of producing, I guess there's different levels of involvement, but I guess several people have said that all of them are very involved in this versus, just kind of putting their stamp on it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We'll have to see what happens next spring. All right. The next bit of news, I mean, I am slightly surprised at this only given his schedule, but do you want to talk about this?
I'm very excited about this. I don't know. We haven't talked too much about the boys. I guess we have a little because we talked about Jesse Usher and how he's in Tales of the Walking Dead, and
Yep.
you're really you love his turn
I
as
I
A
do.
Train.
I do.
And yeah, like that show has just kind of blown me away, and I feel like it's actually really gotten a lot more high profile appeal, even though it's so gory that it can never really be mainstream
Uh-oh.
unless the mainstream is widening, and now it's like fine to have, you know, the kinds of decadent weirdness that that show kind of incorporates. So Jeffrey Dean Morgan Negan is going to do a guest starring appearance or appearances
Hmm.
on The Boys in season 4, reuniting with Jensen Ackles and what's Kripke's first name? I don't know,
Oh,
but a couple of his Supernatural production, like Kripke was the showrunner, I believe, for Supernatural.
yeah, Eric Kripke
Eric
is.
Kripke and Jensen Ackles obviously was played Jeffrey Dean Morgan's son
Mm-hmm.
on that show. So he apparently has been a big fan of the show and has been bugging people for spoilers last season, and was, you know, going back and forth on Twitter or something with Eric Kripke saying, "Hey, get me on the show. You know, write me a part and I'll show up." And so I guess to finally managed to do it, and I think that's super cool.
Yeah, so I don't know how much he'll be in it, but it is kind of a cool thing. I'll admit I haven't watched season 3 yet of The Boys. Because I just haven't had time to do it. And this isn't something that my husband is really into. He was okay with like the first season, but then I was on my own for the rest. So
Yeah, it just kind
um
of doubles down on its on the
yeah.
gross factor, but it's also just a super well done show, and like the
Yeah, and
character
I
development does not suffer for the
oh no, no.
grossness.
No, and I'm fine with it. So that's probably why I don't know how your wife is feeling about it, but
No, no,
I'm
no, it never even entered a conversation.
ah.
No, no, no.
So anyway, but I'm excited to see this. I love him. I'm excited to see him on all sorts of things. So it's also kind of nice to see him branching out from the Walking Dead franchise too. So,
I mean, before he came to Walking Dead, he had a huge
oh yeah.
diversity in the kind of projects he was doing, and to me, this is just like more of him being him.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
he's had it's just a like
yeah.
issue I think because
Well,
it
why
just
do you
keeps
feel like he's so busy? Just because of the Dead Island or whatever
yeah.
it's called? Island.
Yeah, I think that
What's
and
that
there
show going to be called?
I don't remember.
Island of the Dead?
Isle of French Zombies. I don't know.
Isle of
Um
Walking Dead?
but he's not even just the filming part, but all the sort of PR stuff that they all have had to be doing. I just feel like it's been a pretty big time suck. So,
Yeah.
but anyway,
I mean,
and
based
I
on Carl Urban's Instagram, it feels like they only actually film The Boys for like 1 or 2 months a year.
yeah, yeah. So, but that, yeah. So I'm kind of excited to see him and this end of things, and he's awesome. And then last, I'm gonna let you do this because this is your thing.
Dungeons and Dragons released a video trailer, a Japanese commercial for Dungeons and Dragons that I guess is airing or has aired in Japan. It's in Japanese, and it actually features zombies, which you don't see that much being like a front and center creature in American ads for D&D, or even really like they don't play up the undead all that much. When they do, it's a vampire, like Curse of Strahd. But in this video, which is hilarious,
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
they go up against some zombies and they use their magic and their swords to defeat them, and it's a lot of fun to watch. And like it really kind of it takes two great tastes to go great together, like Japanese
Mm.
action and D&D, and puts them together.
I was just like, how much money did they spend on this thing? Because it's not like
Oh,
low
it's all
budget.
green screen, right? Like,
It is, but it's still like
yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, it's pretty cool. So Japan and D&D making me happy this week.
Yep. Um, but anyway, yeah. So that's the last of the news. We're gonna
I
now.
have one other thing I wanted
Oh,
to
you
talk about,
do.
AJ.
What do you want
Well,
to
two
talk about?
things. I guess in missing our podcast, I've been reading a lot of zombie novels. So I mentioned one of them a couple weeks ago on one of the encore episodes, which was X Heroes by Peter Clines. I thought that was a pretty good book. I don't know if you've ever read it,
Mm-mm.
which is heroes and superheroes and zombies mixed together, two genres. And the one I'm reading right now is called Omega Days, and I forget the name of the author, but it's actually pretty good. It's a lot of vignettes, the kind of the way you want a zombie apocalypse to be told in the beginning, a la Max Brooks. So that's been fun to watch. And then also in terms of society breaking down and stories like that, which you and I are often interested in, I would recommend watching 5 Days at Memorial. It hasn't ended yet. It's a mini. I assume it's a mini series from HBO Max, and it's about a hospital during and in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina
Mm.
and how badly everything went. Um, and it goes really badly just within 5 days is kind of the moral of the story.
Hmm.
So just putting that out there, check it out.
All right. All right. I will check it out. Um, okay. So on to our review of Valley of the Dead, um, which is it got released on Netflix in 2022. And this is supposed to be during the Spanish Civil War. And basically, you know, it's it's it is in Spanish, so you have to watch it with like the subtitles and things like that.
Well, the dub was on by default for me, which
Yeah, for
turned
me
off.
too.
But
But oh wait, the dub was on by default for you? Weird.
yeah, I don't know why.
Maybe yours always kind of reverts to that because mine always just does the subtitles. It's interesting.
I don't know if there's a settings page on Netflix that I'm able to edit, but it started with well, I guess it started with German and then it switched to English.
Yeah, so in any case, this is during the Spanish Civil War, and you've got like the usual sort of there's like the tensions there. I thought it was uh, actually kind of fun. Um, but what was your initial take of it?
It's definitely a fun movie. It's
I
not
mean, it's
like
not serious and it's just
no,
fun, I guess, and it's
but
there's
between
so
when your hero Khan, which
yeah,
is apparently a Spanish name, even though it looks like Jan and it
yeah,
sounds like Han, and
yeah.
I've never seen this
No, me
before.
neither.
But Han is just like he is like Han Solo. He's a rogue, right?
Yep.
Like that's his character
Well,
mostly.
I kind of thought it was a play on that and maybe a joke about that, but maybe I'm wrong.
I
But
mean,
anyway,
it kind of works if that's what they were going for. And what's weird is he's not the only archetype of that character in this movie because there's another
no,
guy, Jarrell,
yeah,
or Hurel, who's also exactly like that. And it's a bunch of characters, and
yeah,
they actually a lot of them get developed pretty well over this film, and they almost all have something funny to say, with a couple of exceptions. So it's a funny movie. So like
yeah,
it's lighthearted, even though a lot of them die, and it's a zombie movie. So and
yeah.
it's set during like a time of terrible strife that was really bad and damaging to Spain.
Yeah. So, this is, just to set the table, we get sort of this initial, like, uh, sort of moment that just starts out with Nazis basically taking out this whole wedding party in evil fashion. Um, you've got the scarred sort of Nazi doctor overlord kind of guy. Um, basically acting like he's being kind of nice to this wedding party and then just takes them all out, and they go right into it. Like they throw some blue smoke bombs at this whole wedding party,
Well,
and
first they shoot them all with a
well, they
machine
shoot them
gun.
all, and then and then but then it quickly flips to sort of the setup for I'm just gonna call him Han Solo.
Yeah, I think that's
Um,
fair.
and he's getting ready to get taken out by a firing squad, and his uncle is apparently a person of power in the military, and this is the side that has aligned itself with the Nazis.
Yeah, the
So
Francoist
yeah,
faction.
and he gets yanked from the firing squad at the last minute, but then has to, sort of prove himself to his uncle, who thinks he's like just a person. His uncle is like, "Oh, I've saved your butt too many times, and now you have to prove your what loyalty to this army or whatever." So sends him on this ridiculous mission that seems like to be certain death. Along with
I missed who he was supposed to be taking this letter to. It was another Franco guy.
it was, but it's more like, he's supposed to go into enemy territory with nothing but this like cowardly sidekick who'd been like basically um taken up for
Desertion, right?
desertion de Cruz and Pablo, as we find out later. And so, it sets up that, and there's the whole the dialogue is fun. The like sort of the repartee between the different characters is great, and it's it moves along pretty quickly too. It's not the
Yeah.
pacing of it is pretty swift, but it also doesn't take itself too
Well, the
seriously.
runtime is 102 minutes, and they have to do a lot in that time. So
Yeah,
they have to kind of, yeah. There's not a lot of time to hang out. Maybe in the safe house later is kind of when they let it slow down. But at first, it's just chugging. Yeah,
and it's getting a lot of like the tensions and things into this, like things that I think that they did a masterful job in terms of editing, and unlike a lot of these films, I feel like whoever did the editing here did a really good job in terms of like putting all of those things into one place and not sort of losing sight of the storyline. So
the
uh,
script is okay. Like
yeah, it's not.
when they threatened that Nazi to get into like to get past the wire,
Yeah,
though,
it's weird. I don't.
it was a strange choice. But then they make up for that
Yep.
with the German kind of smiling and saying, "Okay, sure, go on in,"
Yep.
knowing that he's gonna, they're basically gonna be dead because this is the experiment zone.
Yep.
Um, and the dogfight that he watches through his the mirror on his car was
Yeah.
laughably bad CG.
It was pretty bad. I think they were hoping that they could cheat a little bit just because he was watching the reflection, but
Yeah,
no, it was pretty rough. But basically, like the tensions that they have, like he's on this mission. They make they already set up things like knowing, like his uncle makes some reference to to Han Solo's brother, um, who's on the opposition side, and they and there's a lot going on here. So there's he was like a corporate lawyer, and now he's in this role. Pablo is like this young kid and really kind of endearing, despite, and you don't blame him for being cowardice, and they have these like really funny moments where they're talking about why the war was started and why Pablo was like thinking like about puff pastries, and that's why he got involved. Like, because the nuns made the puff pastries, and they didn't want anybody else getting their hands on that control or something ridiculous like that. So there's good moments with the script. It isn't the most complex of stories, but it moves the story in for this kind of a film. I think it does an admirable job, and
there's
it's
also like
not.
a weird naivety to it with
Mm,
the sergeant who we meet, in a scene or two, the leader of the communists, this
mhm.
little group of communists, like being completely ignorant of religion and
Yeah,
like it's like, wait, how long were you a communist? Like that you do you have no idea like
right,
how religion works?
right.
Because I feel like it was kind of new to you in Spain, maybe. I don't know.
Well, and
Uh
also, yeah, and if you had grown up in, you know, if you had grown up there, no matter what, you probably have some knowledge of it, right? Like, I don't know, this that felt a little weird. Um, but I don't
That's,
know.
that's a small thing, but it was kind of like a curious element because it came up a couple times that he was like, what do you even, what, how does religion work? And but they're trying to paint this incompatibility between these two factions who end up being thrown together. And I like the characters of this commie squad, even though some of them don't stick around very long. Brodsky, I think, is absolutely my favorite with his
Oh, he's great.
obsession with being Russian and
Yep.
talking about Russian proverbs. As we say in Russia, X, Y, and Z, but he's clearly like a Spanish guy
Yep.
who's maybe born in Russia but moved to Spain as a baby, I think was part
That's
of
what he
his
said. Yep.
background. Uh and like he's the big dude, gets taken down by a kid zombie not long after his
I know.
introduction.
On the ankle, man.
Yeah.
Or a
I also
cat
like the fact that they introduced an American character and then killed him immediately. Uh
immediately. And also because he was being like a wanker and trying to set up a fake photo. It was just ridiculous.
like
So,
a fair amount of
yep.
of metaphor or whatever going on there where they're just like,
Yep.
yeah, we're gonna take the American, make him like a weird pain in the ass, and then also make him dishonest and kill him all within like 5 minutes of his introduction.
Yep. But that was, that was kind of good. But I also like, look, they also have these like kind of like weird tropey characters, like but kind of fun characters. Like the priest killer is, they make a lot of assumptions about her, and she's fun throughout the whole thing. And then the nun, who they keep calling what, the old crow or something like that.
That's is that Sister Floor is the old crow from the first scene or from the
Yeah,
early scene?
yeah.
Okay, I kind of lost track of that.
And she's just kind of like doing, I don't know, it just, they have like some pretty good and fun back and forths between all the characters. And um they build, and I mean, despite the fact that it's like it is moving along quickly, they do build these like relationships. So one of the more successful ones, I think, is also with Pablo and the race car driver.
Yeah, Metcha.
Yep. And like that isn't, they don't even share that much screen time, but they managed to like have these moments because Pablo had seen him race when he was a kid and got his autograph, and they do a callback to that later where it's like, yes, he remembered the kid. And
It's just a few
um
touches throughout the
yeah,
story. Like
and
they find
it's
they
really
find
done well.
Metcha's burned out motorcycle, and that's like the first one, and then there's another in the middle, and then one at the end. But it's like an incredible. Yeah, I agree. That was like the storytelling triumph for this
Yeah,
movie,
yeah.
because when Mecha does his little send off at the very end,
Hmm.
God, it's so moving. It
Yeah, absolutely.
was
So
wild.
yeah, so in any case, and the rest of it is just sort of like your standard sort of Nazi experimentation zombie fare, which is that they came up with this quote unquote weapon, which is the blue smoke bombs, whatever they are, which convert everybody into zombies. And then the whole sort of point is that this group, which is opposing each other generally, bands together against this threat and also wants to try to find an antidote, and understands that the wider threat is not just about this war but about humanity. So they're going to go and try to find the antidote. Um and so and, and so that's kind of interesting, and people are getting picked off like you would see in any zombie film, and the Nazis are Nazi and evil.
And the
But
communists are kind of evil too, at least the
yeah,
political officer guy.
everybody's kind of like in there's a lot of gray in this. And
Well, there
so
are a lot of there's people on each extreme, and then there's
right,
our band of mishaps in the middle, kind of just
right,
like bouncing off of the barbed wire fence, literally.
right, right. But it is, I just think as an overall, um compared to other projects we have seen, I just thought it was done pretty well. And they didn't have a huge budget, clearly. I mean, even they did some pretty decent makeup with the zombies, but they did the whole crowd thing where you see a few people up close and they're trying to like make the edits pretty quickly. Um so that you don't see too much. I don't know, like, and then they used a little bit in terms of like some of the people getting infected, like the veins going dark and that kind of thing. It wasn't over the top, but it was, and certainly with some of the scenery, they had a lot of stuff happening in the outside, which they were probably in this one like little area that they were tromping around, right? Like in the boat and then the woods and all of that kind of thing. They didn't really have to do a ton with sets. I would say the biggest set was probably and it was probably the same one, is what we see in the beginning and then what we see at the end. That
Yeah.
was just sort of like a weapons depot in the mountain, whatever, and it all looks the same. So, you know.
Las Aguilas, I believe,
Mhm.
is the it's supposed to be like this fascist base. And that is a pretty cool sequence. Just, after all of the other adventures that they have, like going to that little village in the church. Las Aguilas, though, lets you see like your heroes dying a lot
Yeah.
of the time. Like Jarell and Mecha have a really cool send-off scene together,
Hmm.
where even though they haven't been building this relationship like Mecha and Pablo de Cruz had been, um, they end up together. And then oh god, when they're like they decide to blow themselves up because there's no way out where they are in their truck, light up that dynamite and say, okay, long live Spain. And then Mecha's last words are like, wait, which one, yours or mine? And then they explode. I thought
Yep.
that was fantastic because they were on opposite sides of the conflict. But so the film is kind of poking fun. Like, of course, it's just long live Spain. Who cares?
Yep.
Yeah, and I thought that De Cruz's exit was really cool too. Even though it's sad as like this little dude that he goes
I
out.
know. But it was a night. I mean, he goes out and he like I kind of liked how they did it, and he set it up so that he would just keep walking towards the thing, walking towards the fence, even though he becomes zombified. Um, I thought that was kind of that was really well done, and again, the touching little story about him, with the race, the guy, the bike racer or whatever, was really made that so much more poignant and better than, honestly, better than it had any right to be. And he was like this hero, and I don't know, I kind of enjoyed that part of it.
That was pretty impressive. And then they also had a character, Rafir, who everybody just kept referring to as Muslim,
mm,
who is like the best shot, basically never misses, and also a survivor at the end of the story. Although he doesn't get anything in the epilogue, which is a
I know.
bummer.
I was like, that's kind of lame. So
I think they were
all,
just like, well, he's alive. That's all you
all
get.
you need to know is that he's alive, I guess.
Because
Oh,
then they skip from his like waking up to Han and Priest Killer PK, who are like cuddled together inside this weird glass box thing, and then they get to go on a little motorcycle ride together without Rafir, and you're just like, okay, I guess he's just okay. It's
I
kind of
did like,
odd.
yeah, it was a little weird. And then the woman who plays Priest Killer, Ara Garita Sanchez, I mean, she's a pretty well-known Spanish actress, I guess. I think she's done a lot of television, but she also did a film called Stockholm, which is known, I guess, a little bit better than other things. I have not seen it. But that was a while ago. But I mean, she's apparently pretty well known in terms of like projects and things like that. So for them to have gotten her for this is a kind of a big deal. And so, and I like, I do like seeing these different projects, as you and I have talked about, like some of these just to see like different directors in different places for zombie films. Like this one takes place almost entirely, like it's all filmed apparently in Catalonia, which looks pretty cool. Aside from the zombies, it looks kind of like a cool place to visit. But it makes me want to go back to Spain and visit. So, hopefully I won't come across any kind of zombie experiments.
Probably
But
will not. I think I don't know. Maybe there isn't much more to say on the movie. It was a lot of fun. It was tropey in the way that I like those sorts of tropes to be introduced to things where it's like, okay, enemies working together, cool, check. Nazi zombie experiment, cool, check. Uh, you know, Lots of jokes and a couple of survivors. Like when the political officer got killed, I was actually laughing out loud. I was just like, that is exactly how I wanted that scene to go.
Yeah, it
You
was
nailed it.
very, it was like instant karma. It was great. But I overall I really enjoyed this. I had fun with this. I laughed out loud. I just thought it was it addressed a lot of things. I mean, the whole thing but with Catalonia is that it always has had this kind of tension, and did have these tensions, and so I think it's kind of cool that they actually filmed it here entirely, and and I think that the this, to me, it walked the line perfectly in terms of not taking itself seriously, but also, I don't know, addressing some pretty serious issues. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I just thought that this was definitely, um the creative team understood the mission here, in my opinion. So, and that was actually definitely one of the best scenes, I think. Um, it was so fast too.
The political officer's death
Yeah.
scene. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he's being a jerk. Like he's pointing his gun at everybody. He's aligned himself completely by himself. None of the other communists are with him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but the silent zombies waiting off screen are right there.
Yep.
So yeah,
Yep. It's great.
that was pretty great. Yeah. So I guess what do we want to talk about the next time we get together, AJ?
Oh gosh, I don't even know. Weren't we gonna do the
We can
what
do Tales of the Walking Dead if that's what you would
yeah,
like.
yeah. Let's
We
do
can
that.
do Day Shift, the Snoop Dogg Jamie Foxx vampire movie that came out not long ago.
Um, we can do that. I'm gonna let you choose.
Oh boy. Well, why don't we get into Tales of the Walking Dead? I'm really excited to
I'm
watch it. I
excited
want
for
to see
that.
it. Yeah.
Let's do that.
Okay. So do you want to close us out, or is there anything else that you want to say about the about Valley of the Dead, or
Oh,
just
I'm just gonna say that I think if you are into the zombie genre, this is like a fun little respite from like a big series, and um it's definitely worth checking out. And I'm glad that they finally got a release for it. I know it was supposed to be released way back in 2020, and all the delays because of COVID and everything happened. So you know, I hope people are watching it on Netflix, and hopefully it gets some good reviews, because it is a fun little creation to watch, and I hope they do more. I would love to watch whatever else this team has in mind. But if you think if you have watched this and you would like to, give us your thoughts, send us an email, reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. On the Twitters, reanimatedpcast is the handle, or you can leave us a message on our website, reanimatedpodcast.com. And next time, we will be talking about the long-awaited Tales of the Walking Dead. So I'm super excited to talk about that with you, Stuart.
absolutely. Thank you, HA. It's good to be back.
It is. And until next time, ciao.
Alrighty. Bye.